Hey, welcome back to another Haven't Read It video. Today's first story is from PettyRevenge, and the rest are Malicious Compliance. Our first story of the day. Don't want me to make a weird late evening snack? Fine, I'll eat something normal. So yesterday, I went to the store around 8 o'clock and I found a steak for sale that was about to go bad. I brought it home and around 10 o'clock I cooked it. My parents decided that this was a problem for some reason. They literally said it made them uncomfortable because they were raised differently. I thought this was the weirdest reason ever. I asked them why it's a problem for them, and they didn't say anything logical. It just made them uncomfortable that I was eating a warm meal at this time. I asked them why it was normal for them to eat yogurt, but they said that was different because that could be considered a dessert, so I took that seriously. Today I bought a big sponge cake, and 10 o'clock sharp, I obnoxiously started eating it. Of course they were mad, but I just followed their rules. I may be a bit disrespectful, but honestly, if they have a problem with me eating, I don't care if I'm being a petty brat. Right now I'm grounded for unclear reasons, but it was so worth it to see the utter look of defeat and desperation in my parents' faces. LOL. Top comment. I hope this is a real story. I commend your efforts. Stand your ground. OP says, I honestly wish I could say it's fake. LOL. But nope, I'm really grounded like a 12-year-old for following their logic. Second comment says, just Google mealtimes around the world. It's not uncommon to eat late at night in many places. Someone else says, we eat dinner between 10 and 1. That's 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. We've done it for years. Next top comment says, that's genuinely bizarre for them to complain about. If it was that they didn't want you to cook at that hour or were afraid that protein would keep you up late, then it would make more sense. But just because it's a warm meal, what a weird thing to quibble about. Warm bedtime snacks are the best. I love feasting on a buttery baked potato right before bed. OP says, try telling them. They said something along the lines of, very few do what you're doing right now. As if I was butchering my own cow instead of just eating a regular steak. Second story of the day. You want to deny my heritage? Back in 2012, I worked in a call center for one of the major cellular phone companies, the Magenta one. It was midsummer and the air conditioning was struggling to keep the building cool. I am a big dude, 6 feet 5 inches, 300 pounds, built like an NFL lineman. I run hot, always have. I had a fan at my desk, but I was told we could not have fan or heater at our desk. Okay, cool. Our handbook said men must wear pants or slacks, collared shirts, and no open-toe shoes. The next day I show up in a kilt, dress socks and shoes, and button-down collar shirts. Before I get to my desk, a manager stops me and tells me I can't wear that. I look at her and ask why. This is part of my heritage. In fact, it is proper business attire. Before she said anything else, I asked to go and speak with HR. The HR representative is awesome in every way. When we walk in her office, she looks at my kilt and says, nice kilt. It looks great. How can I help? The manager says, I need to write him up for not wearing pants. The HR representative looks at me and smiles and thanks me for coming to her, that I am to go back to my desk. I do not know what was said, but I got an apology from that manager and was never bothered about my kilt again. Top comment says, it's a fucking call center. 0 customers to show off for. I don't get people. Someone responds, I worked at a call center for a few months. Women had to wear skirts and hose. Men had to wear shirts and dress slacks. The reason women had to wear skirts is because the manager liked looking at legs. It was the grossest workplace ever. Someone else responds, I used to work in a call center of sorts. Lights so bright that some people had fashioned mini caves out of their cubicles. But we had rules for what attire we could wear. Couldn't wear hoodies for whatever reason. Despite that, we never saw the public in any way, shape, or form. In fact, at one point, they were actually controlling when we could switch between summer and winter apparel at work. Like we were fucking toddlers. Next top comment says, when I say that nothing is worn under my kilt, it means that everything is in working order. Someone goes, so what do you wear under your kilt? Me boots. Prince Philip, when asked by a journalist what he was wearing under his kilt, he replied, socks. Next story. Clock in and out according to your contract. Sure thing, boss. Reading a post today about some absurd rule bosses made reminded me of an a-hole of a manager I used to work with. Not actually report to. I used to work in an office in a training department. My manager was super chill and she didn't care much about my schedule and hours I was doing, as long as I did the hours my contract said and didn't take a mick. I used to come in at around 7:30 a.m. every day. I didn't start until 8 a.m., but I would come in, say hello to a few people, make myself a cup of tea, maybe have a quick chat with someone. I would then start working at around 7:50 a.m., still 10 minutes before my start time. I should finish work at 4:30 p.m., but quite often I would stay until 4:45 p.m., or sometimes go home at 4 p.m., but the following day I would stay longer, so my hours in a working week would still add to what they supposed to. My awesome manager went on maternity leave, and they gave us some a-hole wannabe manager who hasn't had a clue about us or our job. Since my manager was away, we all had to report to the a-hole. She hated us. For some weird reason, she hated our department and everyone in it. Never said why, though. Very quickly, she realized I was doing weird hours and pulled me in the office. She started saying all this crap on how I'm stealing company's time and money, how I'm unprofessional, and how she's going to put her foot down and make me work properly, whatever that means. I tried to listen to her and asked her questions, but she started to say that, one more word and you are out. Okay, cool. You are a prick. Great. So I ask, what is it that you want me to do? And she says, do the hours that are stated in your contract. Okay, cool. So, to clarify, I ask, does that mean I have to start at 8 a.m. and finish at 4:30 p.m. every day? She rolled her eyes, looks at me like I'm stupid and says, it's not that hard. Your contracted hours is what I want to see on your timesheet, not this nonsense you've been doing. Okay, fine. See, I'm petty, very petty, and I don't like a-holes. So I go home and sleep like a baby, knowing I will mess her up so much she will start losing her mind. Next day I come to work and wait by the clock-in machine to clock in bang on 8 a.m. Then I work my normal day, and then I go back to the clock-in machine and wait to clock out exactly at 4:30 p.m. I'm sure you already know where this is going. But wait, there's more. My super friendly fellow coworkers realized very quickly what I was doing and decided to do the same. There was 10 of us in a team, and we all gathered at the clock-in machine before and after the shift to clock in and out exactly at 8 a.m., 4:30 p.m. The a-hole manager didn't realize for a while what was going on until she put a meeting in place at 4:30 p.m. Well, 4 of us were in that meeting. Comes 4:25 p.m., and all 4 of us get up while she's talking and run out to our desks. We quickly gather our stuff and run to the clock-in machine. Then 1 to 2 minutes later, we all clock out and go home. She didn't even have the time to ask what we were doing. Next day, she sends us an invite for 4:30 p.m., and it gets rejected by everyone on my team. She sends nasty email to all of us who rejected that we will be written up for insubordination. We forward the email to HR and ask for a meeting. Meeting happens. The HR lady listens to us, eyes wide open, then laughs, shakes her head and says, leave it with me. We go about our day, then I'll clock out at exactly 4:30 p.m. Next day, a-hole manager is nowhere to be seen. HR lady sent email to us asking to come see her at 2 p.m. There we are informed that a-hole manager will no longer oversee our department. Actually, she will no longer work for the company due to objectives not aligning anymore with the business, whatever that means. Gossip has it that a-hole manager was always biting more than she could chew and caused issues across few departments. She was moved around because second chances. Well, we went back to our own schedules. When our manager came back from maternity leave and was told what happened, she laughed and said she raised us well. Top comment. I always find it staggering the number of folks who get into management positions without the slightest idea of how to manage others. Someone says, yes, it should be the other way around. An acquaintance of mine told me that he took a new job managing a large blood bank. I said, I didn't know you had a healthcare background. He replied, I don't. I know how to manage people. Oh, man. Someone else replied to this comment. A good manager doesn't need to know things. They need to know who knows things. Next comment says, I was a manager for a few years. One thing I learned, I was afraid I would have to know everything, solve every problem. I had employees who would come to my office and describe a thorny problem with administering a contract. I would have no idea how to advise them without having studied the contract. I said, what do you think? And they would outline the perfect solution. The job taught me that a team is a lot smarter than one person, especially a manager. Someone replies, what do you think should be every leader's first go-to? Last comment says, I will never understand managers who stand on 8 hours a day. I might do 7 in the office one day and then be working on something late in the evening because I got an idea. I'm a software developer. We get random weird ideas that just might work. Other days I do a 9-hour day, go home to eat, and spend a night working full on until 2 in the morning for something that needs to be done the next day, where I'll be in at 9. My hours aren't always 40 a week. Sometimes they're 38, sometimes it's 45. My all-time record is 112 hours in a week. Yes, really. If you pin 8 hours at the office on me, you're not going to get anything over the evening, weekend, or anything else. Oh, that just sounds terrible. Give me the 9 to 5 any day over 112-hour weeks. Ugh, gross. Next story. They may take our shorts, but they'll never take our freedom. This happened a few years ago, and our compliance wasn't exactly malicious, but I thought I'd share. We had a new CIO take over our IT group. They had next to no experience or competence, and weren't even a finalist from the selection committee, but were a friend of the CEO and were hired. What they lacked in these areas, they countered with micromanagement and the demand for absolute professionalism, superficial BS, if you will. One of the first policies they implemented was no shorts, and attire must be office appropriate, no holes, no graphic t-shirts, etc. Effectively business casual, especially for supervisors. Now there were various positions in IT, but several of us, who were also supervisors, had to work in dirty and unconditioned spaces, etc. Several of us made requests to wear shorts, installing new cabling in the floor of the server room, unloading and installing equipment, wiring buildings in the summer that had no or low AC, etc. All were denied. When walking out of a meeting to discuss this, we noticed that the CIO's secretary and several of the female office support staff were wearing skirts or skirts. We brought this up at our next meeting, and were assured that this was different, for reasons. Obviously, the women in our group were not about to wear skirts while ITing about, but several started wearing skirts. Later, I, male, was looking through my Think Geek wish list, told you this was a few years ago, and at some point, I had placed a Utilikilt in the list. Dear reader, I mashed that buy button so fast that the kilt damned near arrived the next day. I also shared this with a few of my closest male coworkers who did the same. Early the following week, we all show up in our kilts, and our coworkers had a good laugh, as did our manager. A good egg, trying to make the best of the CIO's eccentricities, who said nothing to the CIO. It just so happened that on that day, a Windows update had borked the CIO's computer, and they needed someone to take a look ASAP. While not my job, I eagerly volunteered as I was in between tasks. I showed up in my kilt with the CIO present, who just sort of stared as I worked, fixed their computer in a very professional and expedient manner, and left. Shortly thereafter, I got a message from my manager that we needed to talk. Long story short, while he was sympathetic, I was in violation of the no shorts policy. I said that if women can wear skirts, we should be able to as well. Full disclosure, I was the only person with a very specific, hard-to-come-by skill set, so I was fairly secure in my position and was happy to take one for the team, as there would likely be a little consequence for me personally. Anyway, while we didn't go crazy with the kilts, we made a point of wearing them when we had some visibility outside of IT, which caused a lot of discussion from other departments, from laughing to good-natured ribbing to solidarity. A short time later, we had an all-hands meeting. The policy was being amended so that managers could make exceptions. For example, when we needed to do building infrastructure maintenance, etc., and that from now on, Fridays would be casual day, still no shorts, but more relaxed clothing. I honestly think they had seen this on Office Space. The mutual understanding, though, was that in return we needed to retire the kilts, which we did for the most part. Top comment. When my new manager decreed no shorts, even when the weather was over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I bought my first kilt. Not Utilikilt brand, but a similar style. Also, I still have a couple skirts from Think Geek. I love that shop. The next comment says, I like the way you skirted their policy. He kilt them with kindness. Last comment says, having to crawl around under dusty desks to install, replace PCs in a suit and tie, I have never understood the mindset of, you have to look good while doing things that everyone else in the office would absolutely refuse to do while wearing anything nicer than scrubs. So true. Last story of the day. I'm not a painter, but you want me to paint some equipment. Okay. Not my story. This is about my uncle. Here in upstate New York, there is a well-known government strategic military contract facility that produces very niche but vital military assets. Both my dad and uncle worked at this facility back in the 70s to 80s as old-school machinists before CNC machines existed. This huge vast facility has a bunch of equipment in different states of use. One day, my uncle's supervisor noticed one of these random pieces of equipment, a bandsaw, I think, was looking rather shabby and decided to assign my uncle to paint it. My uncle, being a machinist, felt this task was below his position and ignored his supervisor. When asked why he did not paint the bandsaw, my uncle stated that he is not good at painting and that someone else better at painting should be told to do it. The supervisor insisted that my uncle will paint the bandsaw or else. So as you can now guess, cue malicious compliance. My uncle followed through with painting the bandsaw, as only someone who is not good at painting and doesn't want to be doing it can. First, just to waste as much time as possible, he does a meticulous job of painting every single surface of the entire bandsaw, including the blade itself and even the control knobs and the power cord. But he isn't finished yet. Even though the bandsaw is completely painted, there is still paint left over in the can. So what does my uncle do? Not wanting to leave a half-used can of paint sitting around to go bad, he dumps the can all over the bandsaw, letting the paint run and drip all over the entire thing. The next night, after inspecting the paint job, the supervisor calls my uncle into his office to ask what he was thinking. All my uncle said was, I tried to tell you I'm not good at painting and you should have someone else do it. Update, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he ended up with a special notation in his permanent record stating, do not assign any painting duties. Top comment, we must be related. I had a facility manager order me, and any other tech working nights and weekends, to paint the entire mechanical room. We painted everything. Valves, pumps, nameplates, motors, shafts, grease fittings, electrical panels, doorknobs, making sure to get a good coat over the keyhole. We even painted over the light switches. The cherry on top, and sadly I didn't do it, was the coworker painted over the chiller displays and control panels. The only thing we didn't paint over were the fire alarm detectors because they had a sticker on them that says, do not paint. Plus, they were really high up. Oh, man. Last comment says, this reminds me of when I worked at Pizza Hut back in the dough was made fresh daily. We had this huge industrial dough mixer, a Hobart. My boss decides it needs to be repainted. He tasks me with the job. I have never painted anything but a plaster house wall, so I had absolutely no idea how to paint metal. I told him this. He said, figure it out. So I went to the hardware store and bought gray metal paint. He paid someone to move it outside and I painted it. Yeah, I don't know, it should have been prepped and primed. The paint job started peeling within days. Lucky for him, the company switched to frozen dough at the same time, so the mixer went bye-bye. Seriously, why would you task a teenager to paint an important and expensive piece of industrial equipment? The answer is simple, because people are lazy. Thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.